Financial wellness. Reach out to them for advice at 855-DON-GINO. And now back to your hosts, Don Getling and Gino Fronti.
Every time here, Rob, and I can't wait to see what the arm wrestling is like today.
Well, this time we've got something a little bit different that we'll see which side of the coin you end up on. But today we're talking about the cost of college. We talk so much about getting into college and is it hard, is it easy, how many good colleges are there? That's a discussion for another day at this point. Today we're talking about what are the realities of who's paying for what, when, how, and why, and what are the trends that we're seeing as we move into 2015-16 and 16-17.
So we're looking forward a couple of years ahead now, so you have a little bit of transparency as what's happened over the last few years, what the trend is, what it looks like it's going to happen, and how to project, right? Because of all the other shows that we've done together in the past, I know that you start preparing students in their sophomore year is a great time to start preparing.
Correct.
In their junior year, they kind of have to have a decision made one way or the other, at least a direction to point in. And anybody that's starting in their senior year, they're in trouble already.
There's something to be said for the later you wait, the more difficult it gets. That's in almost anything in life. The more you procrastinate, the more likely it is that you're not going to find the direction you're looking for. When it comes to college and college financial aid and college planning, you cannot disagree that that is a factual statement. The students who come to me and the parents who come to me this time of year, a student is going into their senior year and they say, well, it's time to start that college plan. And I'm going to have to come back and say, well, you've got 3 years of grades and 3 years of community service and 3 years of classes that you elected to take that I can't fix whether they're good, bad, or ugly. All I can do is help you a little bit with, that last SAT or ACT and polishing some essays and searching for the right schools. But if you haven't done a great job in those first 3 years, there's very little a qualified college counselor is going to be able to tell you other than we're just going to have to shine the light the best way we can upon what you've accomplished.
So let's assume that I've done some reasonably good planning and I have a good idea where I want to go, and maybe we've worked together and I had a good score on my test, and now I have a choice of 6 or 7 schools. The world is open to me. How do I pay for it?
That's a good question. And if we take a look at some recent material written by Mandy Woodruff at Yahoo Finance, who I think is an excellent author, we get an understanding of what the trends have been, in the past couple of years. We learned that Americans say they spent 16% more on their college expenses in the past year than they did just 1 year prior. Now, before you sound the alarm bell that, oh my God, the cost of college went up 16%, actually it only went up 2%, which is a pretty fair number. I mean, inflation, I think, is above 2%.
Yeah, 1.8% if you read what the media would like you to see. If you strip out oil and gas and food and all those things that actually do have inflation.
So when we calculate those pieces in, we say that it was a very reasonable cost inflationary year when it comes to college.
For sure.
What we also found was it was the stability in the marketplace, that mothers and fathers are comfortable that they're not going to get fired in the next year, that they're spending more of their savings and income towards their child's future. So just this year alone, in the 14-15 school year, families averaged spending over $24,000 for 1 year to cover the cost of college for their child. That was up almost $3,500 from the prior year.
Okay, so that is a significant gain. That is a significant expense, right? $24,000 a year. I mean, for some families, that could be half of one of the parents' incomes or even half the family's income.
That's right.
And being in the mortgage industry, I know that when I help somebody qualify, we really don't ask if they're helping their children pay for college. That's not on my application. So I'm allowed to lend up to 45% of their income for them to buy a home. So if they spend 45% of their income to buy a home and another 30 or 40% of their income to put their kids in college, now what? How are they going to eat?
That's a good question. So hopefully families have had conversations with people like me or other people in the industry who have a better understanding of how to plan this stuff out. Again, planning is key. If you come to us in the senior year, there's not a whole lot we can do to help you. The other piece is just to wrap your head around what does that number really mean. If the average student is attending college for 5 years, which is in the normal range, multiply by 5, 24,000 times 5, we're looking at $120,000 out-of-pocket expense for an average American family.
So is $120,000? I mean, that's a retirement. That's something that somebody's trying to get into their 401k. And here I come. Here come the horns. Is it worth it? I don't even know if college is worth it these days, with the cost of college being what it is, and the payback potentially not being what it used to be.
Well, I'm clearly going to understand your side of the take here as the devil's advocate, and you're going to say, nah, it's better off just go out in the workforce and figure something out. I'm going to counter that and say 20 or 30 years ago, there was a huge value to being that college graduate because there weren't very many of them. Now, lots of people are college graduates. And the biggest issue is if you don't have that degree, it becomes very easy to overlook you for another more qualified candidate.
So it's a barrier of entry. So you almost need it just to open the door a little bit to make sure you're not automatically disqualified for having that. And as I usually play the devil's advocate, what I will share with you right now is that when this industry went in the tank in 2008, I was searching and trying to see if I really loved what I was doing, if I was truly passionate about what I was doing. And I decided, I said, well, let me look around. And I'll tell you what, when you start looking around, everything that I could do, right, because I'm a finance guy, right? I'm really, really good at math. And so I said, okay, let me start looking around. Well, guess what? It really did require a master's degree to get the kind of jobs I was looking to get. I'm not an engineer, right? So I didn't have an engineering degree. I find myself to be an economist. That's really what I am by nature, but I didn't have a title to say that. And I don't have a finance degree, even though that's what I do for a living. So I did find myself in a situation where it would have been nice to be able to put on a resume that I had a degree.
I don't need to counter you. You answered the question exactly as I would have answered it myself,
Yeah.
Gino.
So I understand the barrier of entry. So I didn't want that piece to hold you back from saying I want to go to college. But again, we go back to the cost. How do we pay for this, right? $24,000 a year. You're talking about that's just a local college. That's not a UC school. That's not a fancy private college. It's not an Ivy League school. This is, I mean, we're talking about entry-level college is $120,000 for a college degree for a bachelor's.
If you're not qualifying for any aid, that is the cost of attendance at a Cal State University, $24,000 a year. Now, granted, 18 is the bottom of that range and 28 is the high of that range. So it depends which Cal State University you're looking at. But at the end of the day, this still comes down to, does that Cal State University have deep enough pockets to be able to help you fund your education? The answer is, they're going to offer you some aid, no doubt about it. It will depend on how much aid you need and how deep each individual school's pockets are.
Okay, well, when we get back, I'm going to dig into this a little further, and I'm going to see how we can pay for this college education, because I'm not about to shell out $500,000 for my 3 children to go to school, so I got to find a better way. When we get back to the Don and Gino Real Estate and Finance Show on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS.